What's going on, everybody? Gunner here. Today's video, I'm going to show you how to make a true fly cast, a true one. And what defines that is you have a top leg and a bottom leg that are parallel. This is about efficiency, and it's not something that's equally necessary among the industry. And that's why it's important, because a lot of you, my guess, you come from a trout background, and if you do, then your introduction to streamer fishing is likely trout streamer fishing. Either wade fishing or fishing in a drift boat or a raft, usually pretty darn close quarters, 20, 30, 40 feet. In which case, my guess is you don't know how to throw a true loop. And when you get into warm water, when you get into salt water, when you get into pike and muskie and peacock bass and all this cool stuff, a little bit way exponentially cooler than trout. Sorry, it's just the truth. I know you guys can't all swallow that fact, but it's okay. But you have to be able to throw a true cast. If you want to throw big flies, if you want to throw 10 weights and 11 weights and 12 weights, if you want to be able to cast all day, you need to be efficient in what you're doing. And you can't carry a payload if it can't cut through the air. So we're going to dive in. If you're new to the channel, I've been making rod reviews. We've made 3 of them so far. TFO BC Big Fly, Sage Payload, and lastly the Chippewa River Custom Rod Predator Stick. They're all big beefy rods, and I've reiterated this point I think in every single one of them, because it's something that I have learned this past this past winter. I was going to say casting season. I cast in the winter in my driveway like a numbskull, and if you ever drive past and it's 0 degrees out and there's someone fly fishing in their yard, it's me. But I practice in the winter a lot, and this is a new rod to me. It's a Blue Halo Zen Glass S2 8 foot 6 fiberglass rod that had a really challenging taper for me to understand, because it was super aggressive with a very fast tip, and I sucked at casting it, and I'm going to go over some pretty cool things. And then we have a Retroflex 3, also from Blue Halo, and this thing is as soft as room temperature butter, okay? And so these are stark contrasts from each other and how you approach them with your cast. And the point that I've reiterated is you have to match the arc of the rod to the bend of the rod. You have to match the arc to the bend. It's an axiom in fly fishing that really applies everywhere and always. And it's something that you adapt to the rod and how much line you have out of the rod that's creating the bend. And if you can do that, there's only other 2 things you have to do. You have to have a smooth application of power, which honestly has mostly to do with athleticism and body awareness and control. But if you're a pretty good athlete, you'll do that kind of instinctively and naturally. And then timing. If you have a smooth application of power, you have good timing so that you're always casting a straight line. You wait for the line to unroll before you begin that forward stroke, so there's no slack ever in what you're doing. And your arc, the arc of the rod, matches how much it bends. You will be an efficient casting machine. Those are the only things you need to do in fly fishing. And, well, the rod tip path, so this whole match the arc to the bend is creating a straight line path of the rod tip. But the straight line path has to occur in this direction, also this direction. You don't want to be Mr. Curvy Worvy. Let's say you have casted fast action graphite rods your entire life. And so you're used to casting very compact, very quickly, very powerfully. Now imagine I gave you a fiberglass rod. That rod is going to go woo! You didn't give that rod enough room. You didn't match your arc, the rotation, the rotational path that the rod is taking to the bend of it. And what did you do? Did you see my little woo-hoo? You threw a tailing loop, and you're going to do it every time. If you have only ever cast fast action graphite and you grab Mr. Buttery here, Retroflex 3, you won't be able to cast this rod to save your life. I'm sorry, you're going to suck. That's just the truth of it, and that's okay, because this video is going to fix that. Now imagine you're used to slower rods. Maybe you love fiberglass. Maybe you inherited a rod from your grandpa or your dad or something, or it's really old, or it's just a moderate action rod for whatever reason. That's what you got. So you're used to a little bit more play. And now imagine I give you a fast rod that's not going to bend all the way and track straight. What's going to happen? You see this arc that the rod tip's going to take? It's not going to bend down to create a straight line path of a rod tip. It's going to arc. You're going to have convex, concavity, whatever, it doesn't matter. You're going to have a very efficient, non-true loop. It's not going to be true. Now this is a fast rod, crazy fast rod, really aggressive taper to it. Let me show you how most trout streamer guys cast. Now, this isn't a fault in trout streamer fishing, because if you only need to cast 20, 30, 40, 45 feet, you want extreme pinpoint accuracy. And if there's a lot of river noise, you got a lot of flow and hydraulics going on, you have boulders and there's just ripping current, you oftentimes want to smack the fly down. You don't want the fly to turn over and land softly. You want to smack it down to draw attention to it. Not always desirable in saltwater or stillwater fishing, is it? But in trout fishing, this is what most people do. So they don't have 85 or 90 feet of line out like I do, forgive me for that. But here's a 30-foot head with a 9-foot leader, and that's what they do. What do? That's what they do. They don't throw a true fly cast, they throw a massive arcing rod tip because they don't need efficiency. They want to hear a smack, and they want extreme control over that accuracy of where the fly is going to smack down. They are not throwing a true fly cast, and that's okay. I'm not faulting them, but if that's your background and that's all you do, and then you move to an environment where you need to punch it and create a true loop, you're gonna suck. And that's just life. You're gonna suck, and that's life, and that's okay. So, this is how you do it. This really fast rod, instead of taking this long arcing cast, you're going to create a very tight pinpoint stop, and you're going to shoot all your line. Did you see how tight that was? It should have been so different. Something you got to keep in mind on these distance casts: back cast line, forecast line, back cast line, forward cast line. You got to aerialize, aerialize. You're doing a figure 8 to make sure you have the right elevation for distance. When you step outside the bounds of matching it, but you're going way beyond what the rod requires, doesn't matter how hard you do it, you're just throwing the most inefficient thing you can. I gave it just about everything I got. It went about 50 feet, and it was pathetic. So now here's the other problem, because it works in inverse, really. If you're a saltwater guy who's always casted fast rods, and you take a slower rod, you're going to equally suck, right? So watch this. You're going to take that really tight tailing loop, tailing loop, tailing loop, tailing loops. I'm throwing a lot of tailing loops. Man, this is going to be a knotted up leader. You can't do that. And the more line I get out, look at this. Look how much play I have in this rod. And if I don't arc it, if I don't almost take this thing to 180 degrees, it's gonna throw a tailing loop every single time. I have to match the bend. Look how bendy-wendy this thing is. You have to match the bend with the arc. And so the more line, the heavier it gets. This is a perfect rod to do something called a 170 cast, meaning the rod is traveling 170 degrees. bendy rod, bendy cast. If the rod is flimsy and your arc is too tight, too compact, too powerful, tailing loop, tailing loop, tailing loop, tailing loop. It's disgusting. This is all information I have kind of gleaned from Mr. Paul Arden, a really exceptional caster. He's got a cool website called Sexy Loops. Feels a little scary to Google that, but you'll come up with his website, and it is a fly fishing, fly casting website. And this whole match the rod arc to the bend of the rod is like the first thing he teaches you. It's like the first thing that he teaches you, and I hope this really drove it home, because you as the fly caster have to match what your equipment is doing to maximize your efficiency. And again, if you match the bend, if you match the arc to the bend, it follows in a straight line. And as long as you have a smooth application of power and you wait for it to turn over, you can now adapt to any rod you cast with any line paired to it, and you'll be able to throw a true loop that will be maximally efficient. Now, the one thing I'll add is the stop. So if you are throwing a true loop, we'll go back to the fast one here. So then if you can do that, if you match the bend, if you match the arc to the bend, you're gonna throw a true cast. Now, the height of the loop, as in how efficient it is determined by your stop point. So if you draw a perfectly straight line, meaning your start and finish point are the same with the rod tip, you're gonna throw the tightest loop possible, and it'll basically be the size of the counterflex of the rod. It'll be the size of the counterflex, because that rod tip's gonna come over and whiplash, and that's gonna have to do with how soft it is, how fast it is, how fast it recovers and all that. So that'll determine your loop size if you did it perfectly. If you did it with an extended stop, which is really useful in streamer fishing, what you're gonna do is you're gonna come down a little ways. So instead of doing a perfectly straight line to a stop, you're gonna do a perfectly straight line, whoop, and you're just gonna, you're gonna blow past straight by just a little bit. You'll still get parallel loops, but it'll open it up. It'll kick the fly up over the rod tip so you don't have a chance of collision. It also guarantees you won't have a tailing loop, but it's not technically as efficient because you have a longer leading edge pushing into the wind. So let me cast this one more time. I'll give you a really tight one and then a more open one with just the head out here. And then I gotta go feed a baby. Look how tight that is. So that's about the size of my counterflex. And it is a bullet. It's a bullet. And then I can open it up a little bit if I want to carry it farther up higher over the rod. So that is fly casting in a nutshell. That's how to be better. But that's what I mean. In these casting tutorials and these fly rod reviews, match the arc to the bend. It's very important that you can apply that immediately based on the taper of the rod blank and the line you have on it. If you can match it, you can cast any rod. If you have good athleticism, you're going to have a good smooth application of the power so that the tip flat and straight. You energize it without creating a tailing loop, and then you stop it on a dime. And then if you have good timing, you'll cast a straight fly line, which means you'll be maximizing the system because there won't be any slack. So thanks for watching, guys. I will catch you in the next one. We're about to start a series on extended body bucktail deceivers and how to make flies longer with short materials. And that's where you start. If you see this and you don't fly fish for predators, 1, fix that mistake. 2, watch the series that's about to come out, because it is the foundation of what predator fly tying is, and it applies everywhere to every fish, including trout. See ya.